You're listening to Never Heard of It, a Night Shift Radio production. I always love Caleb does his overhead claps. I think that's really, it's very YMCA of you. I appreciate that.
I'm doing my
See no evil, hear no clap, do no clap of the three. You know, we had our own.
Yeah.
It's the like when you're on stage and like your guitar's hanging, so like you can't do like a
1,
regular
2,
clap.
3,
Like this is
4.
where, so you got to do the
Got to
really,
be
like,
in Dublin
exaggerated
in
over your
front of
head.
thousands of people. Yeah.
You got to really pump people up.
Yeah.
That's what I do to pump myself up.
To pump yourself up. Yeah, my pump myself up is also involved with clapping, and it's just like, don't get the clap, don't get the clap, don't get the clap.
That's a different kind of clap.
Oh, that's a different kind. Oh, I'm sorry, I get them confused all the time.
We don't do that here.
It always ends with an itch. So, hello and welcome to the Never Heard of It podcast. I'm your host, Michael Fight.
And I am Caleb, but spooky.
And we have a special, this is actually a bonus episode for us, and we have a special guest with us because we're doing this really cool thing. We have writer, director, actor, producer, improv, voiceover. Wait, am I missing more titles? I feel like you have, your business card must be like a sheet of paper.
It's just my website and a picture of me in a fat suit giving the finger. But check it out, joshsmindhouse.com. Gardener, I brought Bougainvillea back to life. I can literally prove it on my yard.
Hey.
Just water. Who would have thought? And recycler.
Yeah, so we have, as mentioned, the writer, producer, director, actor of Scare Me, a brand new movie that came out today on Shudder, exclusive to Shudder. We've mentioned this before. We normally do our like, hey, how good is this movie? Should you watch it at the end? You should fucking watch this movie. Like,
absolutely.
You should absolutely be watching this. Like, stop the podcast, go watch the movie, come back and listen to the podcast. No, just kidding. Listen to the podcast and then go watch the movie a million times. But hi, Josh Rubin. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad you dig it.
Oh, yeah.
Did you get my Venmo? Did you get my Venmo?
Yeah. A wink. Yes, thank you very much. We appreciate it. But yeah, so we're going to talk about the movie Scare Me. So we will preface that this movie is exclusive to Shudder, which if you head on over there, if you don't already have a subscription, what are you doing with your life? But if you don't already have a subscription, definitely check it out. There's a free trial as well. So if you get the free trial and then just play the movie over and over again, that would be very helpful for everyone. For Josh, that would be very helpful for Josh. But definitely check out the movie. And there's a lot of other cool things on Shudder, especially if you're a fan of horror films. You're definitely going to want to. You probably already have it already, and you're like, "Shut up, idiot! Just talk about the movie. I already have Shudder."
Which, I mean, I feel like we've shouted out Shudder at least once or twice here. Like we don't dip into horror too often, but when we do, like, get Shudder.
Yeah,
Color Out of Space is on there.
They've got a rad 7-day trial. I mean, guys, what are you waiting for? You know what I mean?
Right.
Get into a little Nicolas Cage, a little Carpenter, a little Vertotica. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
It's all there. Yeah.
Gotta do it.
So we said that this is, I mean, a horror. Like, we don't do horror per se very often, but Josh, would you classify this as a horror film?
I would say perhaps not traditionally. It's probably more of like a dark comic thriller with horror elements. But I did set out to make a quote unquote horror comedy. I think by nature of the fact, there might be a little blood and a little creature effects. Yes, I think it technically could be under the umbrella, but no, it's I don't think it would make a good pairing to Hostel.
Yeah, those are all.
I think that would be the most off base double billing.
Yeah.
Eli Roth and Josh Rubin present A Weird Night. You know what I mean?
A weird night.
Just a real weird night. It's gonna make you feel.
Just a real.
I just that film series would be like, you would see body parts hanging out, and then it would cut to you, and you're just like, hey, hello, what are you doing? And it'd be like, what the fuck is going? It'd be great.
Just a talkie with psychosexual undertones and legs.
Just legs being chopped off. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. So so in watching this movie, I got about 30 minutes in, and I was like, this is what happens when you give improv kids a budget and a camera. And because that's exactly what I would expect of like improv weekend camp, because it was amazing. It just running around and like you guys telling the stories and stuff was it was fantastic.
Well, limited budget. I only had performance humor and one werewolf hand. That's kind of all we had.
What
But
else do you
ultimately,
need?
we ended up making a sound designer's movie and a composer's movie, and it makes for something pretty different, which hopefully is enticing enough and appealing enough for horror fans or any kind of film fan to be like, okay, I'd check out a movie where 3 people talk in a house and make noises. They say write what you know, and I know my Crypt Keeper impression and walking like a troll.
Yeah, 100%.
I kind of like I'm picturing you like actually heading up a reboot of Tales from the Crypt, and I think the world needs that.
It would be a dream. I think M. Night Shyamalan was at one point going to helm that, and then nothing happened. So I don't know if they pissed off John Kassir or
or something.
Or is it Mark Kassir? Anyway, yeah, I just I don't know. That would be a dream. This
Ball's
whole
in your
thing came
court
about
now.
actually because my manager sent Shudder an early cut of the movie because I wanted to direct an episode of the new Creep Show, which didn't happen because they get horror icons, directing icons and legends from Savini to Nicotero to do that. But I just inadvertently they saw it and were like, we need to have this, which was crazy. And so here we are ish.
And it's awesome, and it's exciting when you get like when you make something like this and then you send it off to someone, you're like, we'll see what happens, and then they're like, yeah, no, I like this, and you're like, no, wait, for real? Wait,
Yeah,
are you fucking with me, or
that's,
what's
that's
up?
the nature of our business. Like I was just talking to Jesse Malton, who was like, every movie is a miracle, and it totally
yeah.
is. It's a miracle. This got made, and here we are. Thank the Lord, unto the Lamb, Christ and Jesus and God, and I love God. I love
Praise-
just so clearly never went to church, but just I love religion and
I
the
know
lamb.
words.
There's a lamb. There must be a snake. Anyway,
there's
I'm gonna have an apple now.
So to preface the film, we'll give a brief overview. So basically it starts off with we see Mr. Banks, which I immediately was like Mary Poppins.
Father of the Bride.
Father of the Bride.
Freddy Krueger, Steve Martin, and Father of the
Obviously.
Yeah.
But so you're heading off to a cabin in the woods, and you have a absolutely wonderful Uber driver by the name of Bettina, who is played by Rebecca Drysdale, who she was spectacular in this movie. Like she has such a small part, but like,
So good.
gosh, she was great.
Just brilliant.
She's my homage to like a Stephen King townie, we're so lucky to have her. I basically was just looking for anyone who didn't look like a contemporary, knowing that Chris and Aya were going to be in this movie. It's like, okay, well, Bettina shouldn't be Kate Berlant. You know what I mean? Bettina should look like they're, kind of this obscure town. And it worked out really, really great. I'm just so glad she was down. She's funny as hell.
Oh yeah, super duper funny. Yeah, that was a great choice. So the drive, so you're getting driven to this cabin, and the goal, we learned that you're there to write. Basically, you're gonna write your fantastic instant bestseller novel for the first time. And it's funny. So my girlfriend is an actual novelist, and she watched this movie with me, and she was like, I've had this conversation so many times. People are like, let me tell you about your, she was just like, she was, saying like how well it was written from like, it very much seemed like a writer. So that was great.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah, no, she loved it. So we're getting there, and Mr. Banks, Fred is kind of like, well, and she's laying on like, oh, here's my idea, and she lays on this fantastic like mythological idea, talking about like Greek gods. What was it again? The
Legend of Korra.
Oh yeah, the Legend of Korra. Which is a wonderful series on Netflix, by the way. It's an Avatar spinoff. You should all watch it.
Which, like, how did you dig
Korra,
that particular story like that deep out of the like? That's from the Torah, or
Yeah.
I don't.
it's way deep in the Old Testament.
I don't know. I did have a that interaction, and that character is based off of a driver I once had, an upstate cabbie, who started to sort of go off on his great script idea, which he didn't get into the details of, but sort of talking about bad business decisions that he made, and at some point talked about like demons, and it was so funny. It sort of inspired another, like, what the original sort of, this small scrappy movie I was going to make adjacent to Scare Me was going to be something about a writer taking an idea he heard from, this kind of oddball cabbie. But instead I sort of expanded it into, this wider cast. He specifically may have mentioned Cora, because I don't know where I would have gotten that reference from otherwise, but that is a real interaction.
That's
That's
amazing.
writing what the awkwardness of, I just want to rest my eyes, and they're like, so you want to hear about my things?
Yeah.
Which is every Lyft drive in LA, by the way. It's like, you got a headshot?
Okay,
I do.
yeah.
Yeah. I
It's
get it
feel
in
like-
upstate New York, and I'm like, dude, there's like 2 film companies here. Stop.
the overly chatty driver is such a relatable story no matter what, but then you throw
Yeah.
in like, oh, you do X, oh, like I do that too, and then
Yeah.
it's so
I got a Necronomicon in the glove compartment. We can just read it while I'm driving. I mean, it's just a whole other movie. Let's go. Let's do it.
I mean, all right, let's do that.
Just a hand comes through the seat. I mean, let's make this thing. Claymation. It's COVID.
It's
you
that
ever
Scare Me
summon the
too.
elder ones while on
Yeah,
a
right.
particularly long drive?
All right, can you hold this goat while I pull out my knife real quick? Hang on. We'll...
Noho Rinkeikyo. That's a Police Academy reference. But anyway,
Yes.
yeah, no, I think.
Oh, Police Academy's great. Yeah, so you get to the cabin and you have your instant writer moment. The all right, werewolves with guns, revenge? Question
Which-
mark?
I have to say the moment I saw that, even in I think it's in the trailer as well, the werewolves have guns, get revenge. All I could think of is like, Kitsy would come up with that. Our sound engineer.
Kitsy's our sound engineer. That is like, yeah. Now it's funny.
That's
I was
something they would
thinking-
totally pitch to me, like, Caleb, I have this great idea.
Well, it's funny. So on this podcast, we do a lot of like indie movies and like B movies and stuff like that, and we try to look for the movies that were like, what is the movie that someone's like, I've never heard of that, and you'd be like, well, here's why you should watch it. And we try to look, a lot of the time we do end up with really good movies. There'll be many times though we'll watch a movie and we're like,
Yeah.
we need our buddy back for that one.
Yeah.
And
Basket
it's funny.
Case 3? Yeah.
Yeah, no, but serious. We did a film called Sex Squatch. That was a movie that somebody made and was
Oh,
like,
no.
here, and it exists. Yeah.
Better or worse than Zombievers? Probably.
Way
worse.
worse. Zombievers at least was like
Yeah, it
silly
was
fun. Like, well, Sex Squatch, in all fairness, did have a ska break. That was one of our we had this like weird coincidental thing where movies will just have like ska musical numbers and we don't know why. It's happened a few times to us. It's weird. Ska music. But it was funny, like when you really get into it and you have your characters there and everybody's telling their stories and each one of them is like the different thing. And I'm like, these are absolutely movies we would have watched. Like, these are movies that our podcast would have covered. Have been like werewolves with guns. Like, we would probably watch that movie. Like,
Just thinking back in my head, okay, which episode was that? Oh, that's not real.
That's not real. No, we didn't actually watch that movie, which is pretty funny. So your character, he gets to the house. He has his writer block moment. The putting it under the couch and just punching it is fantastic, because I've had that moment on multiple occasions where I'm just like,
Yeah.
make it stop, brain do things, and it just doesn't work. How was that? I mean, was that like actual live footage of you writing the film, or?
The phone, he was getting text messages from someone who he didn't
Yeah, that's right.
didn't want to get text messages from, which we never really get into the details of what that is, other than that it's Meredith. There's a fun Easter egg that may have to do with the bookstore employee in the end. But or at least that's how she's credited. Yeah, I mean, again, kind of writing what everything from talking to yourself, to get yourself going, to all of the not writing that goes into writing. I mean, so much of I'm working on a TV pitch right now that's like near impossible, and so much of it is like I need 6 hours, 6 hours to write, 5
Right.
minutes. But that's a lot of the process. It's frustrating, so especially when you're like Fred and truly like do the work, as Fanny says.
Yeah.
It's extra frustrating. You get excited about an idea, but then you don't have the charge. You don't have the you don't have the angry drive in you. Like for me, the angry drive or the motivation in writing this was where the world was at. People who I looked up to, like Aziz Ansari, were being outed for taking advantage of women, and a lot of guys in my network, a lot of dudes, were pretty quiet on Instagram and Twitter, and all I was doing was hitting the share button. And so I wanted to explore like some sort of gender dynamic, especially when dudes can't really deal with when a woman in their close circle is more successful.
Yeah.
So I'm truly writing what at least or what I know and am aware of in that case, including the the frustrations of distraction, lack of distraction, and just mustering creative process. And ultimately, hey, nothing gets you more jazzed than ideas off of other people, but are they the right people? Dun dun dun.
Which brings us to Fanny. So off on a run, Fred meets Fanny, who is played by Aya Cash, who most recently technically most recently you will have seen her in Scare Me, but sort of most recently, she is Stormfront in season 2 of The Boys, which is fantastic. I posted trailers of this. People were like, "Holy shit, is that Stormfront?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, and she's fucking great in this movie too."
Yeah.
So, which is pretty fantastic. I have not seen season 2 yet. I haven't started it. I got to go back and rewatch season 1.
She's so good.
Yeah, no, I mean, she absolutely fantastic in this movie. So we meet Fanny. And, there's a really great line that we're going to talk about and bring up a bit, is that she brings up a line when you get her back, the power goes out. Fanny comes over and is like, "Hey, the power's out in the cabin. Like, what's going on?" And, you start having your moment because you realize that Fanny is actually a published novelist, and she has published a very popular zombie novel. And that, Fred sees this, and Fred, is you kind of get the feeling that, Fred obviously has like that jealousy factor of it, right off the bat, but also it's a little bit like, whoa, like I'm here to do this thing, and you do this thing, and you're here to do this thing, which I think is fantastic. And that's how we meet Fanny, and Fanny says the line, when Fred starts kind of getting a little loud in the beginning, like, "Are you scared of waking the woman in the attic?" And I think that line, our social media manager, Andrea, who watched this movie along so she could help write blogs and stuff like that for us for this, is she was like, I mean, that just sums up the whole movie. Like that line alone of Fred's sort of like fear of being outshined, I guess, by, of him seeing someone super successful and then being like, well, no, I'm writing my werewolf thing, and I'm the one who's going to do a thing.
Like that I mean that like she could make a one sentence horror movie essentially just in that one exchange, that being the idea. Yeah, I suppose you could look at it that way. I like that. I like thinking of it in that framework. She's good, and the more in flow these guys get as they tell stories, the more the stories come to life, and it's just effortless for her. And so, the first words out of her mouth, "Oh, okay, well, you painted a picture. And I just struggled all night writing werewolves with guns, ... question mark."
That's a tough question. Right.
Do they get revenge, though?
But do they?
You got to watch Sleepers to find out,
That is a reference right there.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned, so Fanny gets into the cabin. You know, we've learned that they're kind of next to each other, you know, or down the road from each other, and they're both at their sort of like sabbatical retreat of writing their great novels. Although we have the implication that only one of them is prepared to do as such. And Fanny comes in, and now that, you know, she sees that Fred is working, and, you know, she was like, all right, well, like, what else are we gonna do? Scare me. Tell me a story. Tell me the story of werewolves. And like this moment of like sharing stories and like telling them is very reminiscent of like, you know, kid campfires to me. Like that's kind of where like where it fell in line. Is that kind of like where you got the inspiration for it a little bit? Is, you know, like the telling the ghost stories around the campfire?
I think so. I mean, I mostly told jokes around the campfire. And again was looking for an excuse to sort of, you know, write to my strengths, and some of my strengths are doing these like bizarre noises and physical comedy. So that's all I was really thinking about, was not only am I writing to getting the opportunity to just like, okay, I'm going to just talk and act this crazy scene out and see if it works. And the cool thing was knowing too that in execution there'd be sound design and score and, you know, sort of in some moments practical shadow effects to bring it to life. You knew it was working because the crew was getting into it. You know, the crew was sort of captivated, and that was where they just set out to sort of go like, you know, I'm going to do this because I want to make these sounds. I want to do these ridiculous things that like I've done since I was sitting at the lunch table as a kid.
Right.
You know, and yeah, it's similar with every one of those stories until, you know, it truly becomes transportive until they quite literally leave the house.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing about this that was really great is, you know, a lot of these times when you get these like storyteller type movies is that they very much, they feel scripted. Like they feel like the person is, you know, recanting the lines. This very much felt like we were watching you guys like just go off and tell the crazy stories. Like how much of the storytelling was improvised versus how much of it was fully scripted?
Every word of it was scripted because we had 14 days to shoot this movie, and I had Aya Cash for 9 of those 14 days. She was shooting an FX series at the time, Fosse Vernon, and I had Chris Red for 2 days and change.
Oh, geez.
So it was fast. Now, you know, I wasn't a stickler for getting words right or anything word perfect, and there were moments certainly when I just opened shit up. But we had a job to do. I mean, when we got there, it was like, okay, cool, we have 14 pages. You know, let's like try and hammer through this. And so when the actors usually got it right, we would just keep going. Or it's also why you see a lot of stuff. You know, hopefully it's not super noticeable, but a lot of stuff is long takes when we're doing these stories. And I tried to kind of choreograph it, block it in such a way that was fun to watch, just story-wise. You know, she stands up from the couch, slaps her face off camera, back on, joins, you know, 2 guys you didn't know were there, and then as they leave, they step up close to camera. I tried to make it as dynamic as I could, knowing that we had, you know, 90 pages in that many days, and we still, even though we got snowed out, you know, twice, wrapped early twice, we wrapped the whole movie a half a day early because we were ahead of schedule. It was kind of incredible.
Which is also unheard of. So kudos to you.
Yeah, I think it's because that's a small movie and you had someone who knew what they were doing. And Brandon and I, my DP, Brandon, who's also the co-producer of the film, we mapped the shit out of this movie. We knew every corner of it, and we couldn't have it any other way, especially with me acting in it. I knew when I got on set, I kind of needed to hand things off to him as far as, you know, what side we're doing what, you know, once we sort of talk through the day, and then get my makeup done, learn my lines, and be there as a good partner for Chris and Aya.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that, you know, is you know, the 99% of the movie takes place pretty much in the living room of this cabin, which also is, you know, helpful. You know, company moves are the worst. I mean, you know, you knock down so many, like it just takes up so much time to like break down, move to another spot. Like you lose, you know, almost a whole day just by, you know, packing up and repacking into a new spot. So that's great, worked in your advantage. Where was this shot?
At a house in Woodstock, New York, about 5 to 8 minutes from my childhood home. So we were
nice.
able to, in a very Duplassian way, right where you got resources, right to your resources. I stayed at my mom and dad's house. My mom made breakfast and brought
Nice.
treats.
That's amazing.
My DP stayed there. My first AD stayed there. We had 3 crew houses. One house of which was a big Woodstock sort of compound with a barn with a loft that sleeps 3 and a house that sleeps 6 to 8. So we were able to rent that house from my buddy, and that house also included their car, which was sitting dormant while they were in New Orleans or whatever for the winter. It was really, really generous.
Nice.
And it was you try and get those little hacks out of the way to make a tiny movie come to life. It's really, really rad.
Yeah, I mean, Mom Crafty is the best crafty.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. It's the...
Lasagna. I don't know why that way, but that's my Jack Black, I guess.
It was the face that sold the Jack Black. Yeah, no, there was many. So like, obviously, so you have your history in College Humor, doing improv. You did a bunch of impressions, and I recognized your Jack Nicholson. The beginning of the movie, and I was like, well, of course, because he's in a cabin out in the middle of the snow. Why would you not call it?
Why not do a Jack?
Right. I mean, you gotta do it. You gotta do it.
That's all there. One Torrance family member.
Right. You can pull off the Shelley Long. Well,
yeah.
So where we have it is so Aya's there. She's basically goading Fred to tell stories. She's trying to like push him, and it really comes out as like she comes off kind of rough, let's say. She's very blunt about everything. She calls Fred out on many occasions of being like, why do you think it's just this? And he's like, well, gee, dude, man, but I feel like she's pushing him to tell the story as like a good writer exercise. Like I almost feel like she is being nice, even though it may come off as kind of like perhaps condescending or like like she's trying to egg him on, to try to get him mad. But it definitely feels like she's like, no, this will be good for you, but this is how I know how to deliver it. So that was the sense I got.
Yeah, I think that's dead on the case. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. She was, so she was great. So before we continue on with the actual stories, and we'll get into some of the stories that are told and a little bit more of the plot.
We're going to take a break for a lasagna.
We're going to have a lasagna. Lasagna. Where's my Garfield? He needs to be over here. So we're going to take a quick break. Before we go to break, we just want to remind everyone, if you have not subscribed yet, please do so. I said subscribed, right? It kind of just fumbled out of my mouth, and I feel like it was a mess of B's and D's.
You gotta go with it.
I just
That's what I got.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Subscribed out of that.
Everyone else will. So don't forget to subscribe, guys. We super appreciate it. And leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And we have a merch store, which is pretty awesome for all of our shows, because we have 5 shows. We're part of a giant network, and there are 5 shows. And we have a merch store. And Caleb, what is as he's drinking? I immediately asked him to say
you
a thing.
son of a bitch.
I pitched it to him though, because Caleb loves saying the address for this store. What is the website for our store?
Well, you can find that directly at nsrad.io/merch. Get it because it's like radio, like Night Shift Radio. But you can also find it linked off of our network website, which is nightshiftradio.com.
Well, that's fantastic. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We will be right back.
You're listening to a Night Shift Radio production. Night Shift Radio is a modern media company bringing you shows that entertain, inform, and most importantly, provide an escape. Never heard of it dives into the world of bad, obscure, and sometimes just weird movies. Follow along with the crew of Set Condition 1 as they experience the 2004 sci-fi hit Battlestar Galactica, one episode at a time. Each week on Left of the Dial, we explore a new record or revisit an old favorite. We'll bring in guests to talk about their own music and the state of the industry. The Superpod Hero Cast, guys with beers talking about movies with capes. They draw a random comic-inspired movie from Thor's helmet and offer thorough, insightful, and humorous commentary. And once a month, tune into the Storyteller series and get lost in the magic of a good old-fashioned radio drama. Learn more about these fine shows at nightshiftradio.com and subscribe on your favorite platform.
Hello and welcome back. Thanks a lot for coming back, everyone. So we when we left you, we left with Fred and Aya are now, they're in their cabin. There's a power outage. Aya comes over to Fred to be like, "Hey, is your power out too?" She kind of checks in with him, and then they they get to doing the friend thing. They have a couple of beers. They start talking about their mutual works, both of which are trying to write a novel. And so, Aya comes up with this, or I'm sorry, Fanny Addy. Hello, my name is Fanny Addy. She comes up with this amazing idea to tell scary stories. That was like a dead-on impression of her. You have to admit. I'm just kidding.
I thought it was pretty good.
It was pretty good. She'll be impressed, I'm sure. So Fanny is like, "Tell me a story. Try to scare me, Fred." And so the great stories begin. And so we kick off with Fred's great idea for the best werewolf novel that's ever been written.
Mm-hmm.
And that is
Untitled, evidently. He didn't
Untitled. Yeah, I
mention
noticed that. I was like, as I was speaking it, I was like, "Oh shit, did I forget the name of the title? What was the name of the title? Did he not say what the name of the title was?" But yeah, Untitled werewolf novel. That's just what it should be called. That was, you go to the store. "Hey, do you have that Untitled werewolf novel?"
Yeah.
By Fred Banks.
I'll take one of those. That took so many days to shoot. We didn't, like I said, we didn't have Aya for very long. And pretty much anytime I'm on camera and she was not there. She was in New York City working. So I was reading with my fiance, fun trivia.
Fun.
And it was great. My fiance and I, collaborate on a lot of stuff. But that was a Tetris. For some reason, werewolves, that whole sequence took forever to like get in the can. I don't know why. He kept missing pieces of it, or we kept needing different angles, and we shot quite out of order. So it was fun to start with that, but then jump right into the Carlos stuff, which was like the middle of the movie, and then like go back to it after Chris left, and wild time. Aya got sick, so we had some pickup time there.
No.
What a ride.
What a wild adventure. I would say of all the different stories, the werewolf one probably stood out to me the most for both the sound effects and the music. Not only do you get the sounds of the werewolf, you get the sound of like it thudding, lumbering up the stairs, as they say, like the sound of like the throat slashing, and it was just the sound alone like that. This is the first story we hear. It's the first story that's told, and that's kind of where you see, like you see them imagining it, and you're seeing it from Fred and Fanny's eyes of like, this is what they hear because they're so deep involved in the story and getting involved in it. Like, so you start to hear the music, you say, "Oh, this is where the strings come in," and that, and is lumbering up the stairs and the growling, and it hit like when you have those sound effects, even though it's just you acting it out. It's not, it doesn't cut to, an actual, I feel like a lot of, maybe more like crazy big budget films would actually have gone and shot that scene, as you're telling it. It just would have been voiceover, but it just feels so much more intimate, so much different, that it's just you acting it out. And the sound effects, it was fantastic.
Thank you. It's a crazy experiment to see if this type of film can be effective. And some people are into it, and some people are just like four people talking in a house. But it's effective, and it's minimalism. You don't need all the crazy cuts. You don't need to leave the campfire. And by nature of our budget, but also by nature of trying to do something a little different with this movie. We're a campfire movie, an anthology movie that never leaves the campfire, and it results in something very, very different. So again, a sound designer's movie, a composer's movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Telling or listening to scary stories is one of my favorite things. We have like a whole channel dedicated just to that at work, and it's always like, who can spook the others the most. So I immediately told them about this movie. They're all very excited to watch it. But yeah, I loved that like it was such a stripped down minimalist approach where like it was about the stories and about drawing you into them. And you mentioned very like limited use of creature effects to the point where you have like the one werewolf hen, which was a brilliant touch, by the way, because
Thank you.
this house is doing something, and I'm wondering like how much of that was just like it was supposed to be their imaginations, or how much of it was like the point where like as they're telling their stories, like these things seem to be like actually happening in this house. Like, is there something about the cabin?
Well, anyone with a good horror sensibility probably desired the house to be the result, which is fully understandable, and maybe maybe it would have been more fun to end this movie with some Cthulhu walking down the stairs or emerging from the closet. But the truth of it is, the rule, as with the creative process, Michael, is it your girlfriend who's the novelist? She'll probably tell you the same thing. It's like the more in flow you are, or any of us who tell stories in front of a campfire or to our friends, the more in flow you are, the more into the story you are, and the more in the palm of your hand you feel you have the room, and the more enraptured your audience,
Yeah.
the more it comes to life. The more it comes to life for people, you can see them sitting there on the edge of their seats. And people on the edge of their seats are either seeing something that's totally, enrapturing them or captivating them, or they're imagining it. They're leaving the campfire, as you should be describing it. So the rule of this movie is, Scare Me, the more committed you are to the stories, the more they sort of manifest. And for Fanny, that is effortless. Fanny can do all of this effortlessly. She's done the work. And for Fred, it's an intermittent, very raw type of male aggressive type of talent. It's I'm going to put everything into this one, and then he needs your help to kind of egg you along.
But Fred does have one moment like that very early on, just before refusing to go in the basement, which I can very much empathize with. I would have the exact same reaction on seeing a basement exists. Nope. But when he sits there and he starts the vocalization of the "Let me out," and I'm like, what is happening here? And it feels like he's got this glimmer of that same kind of effortless, like there's something there, and then it just kind of ends.
He really wants. No.
You muted.
Sorry. He really wants to, for lack of a better word. So I got a yappy dog. No.
So do we.
Dog, shush now.
We both have tiny dogs. They yap all the time.
Sorry, sis. You'll have to deal with Daisy. It's not mine. Daisy. Daisy brain farted me. What was it saying about Fred getting into these stories, or like the whole thing about these stories, the MO, them coming to life? Where was I?
We're talking about the brief moment of like him.
Oh yeah, well he wants so badly, right? He wants so badly to like get it up, to do the thing, and he has, like many people do. Well, everybody has ideas. Everybody's got cool ideas, and everybody's got big imaginations. But that's different than sitting down and actually doing the thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's his imagination at work. This guy, he's got a big imagination, but he may not have the talent or the work ethic. And that's what's interesting. It's an interesting sort of trope to explore, because that's totally relatable, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, Fanny definitely brings this up, multiple times throughout this moment where, each time Fred goes to start a story, he's sort of like, well, I don't know, it's a troll and he lives under a bridge or something. And she's like, no, what, like, tell me, like, pull the story out. And she's having like this writer workshop with him, but you can see how frustrated Fred is, because he's like, well, I don't understand. It's a troll. Isn't that fucking scary? Like, bro, what are you trying to, And she was like, no, it's not, asshole. Fucking think. Like, give me more. I hear this every night. My girlfriend comes down after Zoom teaching, and she's like, fucking, it's a story about I don't know. She was like, I just don't get it. And I'm like, I know. Anyways. Yeah, but so that's what it is. And and it's you see Fred, he gets so frustrated. So like, and then Carlos comes in, who's just fucking hilarious. So they order a pizza. I love that the power is out, but the pizza still comes fast. But the power companies are like, hey, we can get a pizza in an hour. So Carlo comes, played with Chris Red. Chris Red's hilarious. And Carlo comes in, and and Fanny is like, you seem like a guy who's into scary movies. And he was like, you would be right. And I just love how quick he was like, let's fucking go. And he's like, when he tells us right off the bat, he's like, oh, this is a very murder cabin.
Yeah. Well, they like you mentioned, like they order the pizza, the power's out, like it's a very busy night for the pizza place, but like they're super backed up, and they say like it'll be at least an hour to deliver. But then the pizza guy shows up and then just fucks off for the rest of his shift.
Right. Loved it. For hours, because like the end of the movie, the end of the storyteller time is like 5 a.m. or something. So like he's there for like 5 hours, and he was like, all right, well, I guess I better go.
Can I tell you, he mentions he says, I should have been in Wappingers Falls an hour ago. I would love to make a sequel no one would want to see where Carlo, we're called Wappingers Falls, where Carlo goes to a sorority with a pizza, and they all tell stories, but it's stories with like 15 college kids, which is now terrifying because, COVID.
Right.
But for him for Chris Red to be the lead, and for it to be like a cast of like younger people that kind of like act stories, I would love to do that. No one will probably want to see it, but that's my dream.
I want to see it.
That's your Scare Me spinoff? Done.
That's my Scare Me spinoff is called Wappingers Falls. So it has nothing to do in the title with being a scary story or scary film whatsoever. But boy, would I love to follow Chris. Like, it picks up the moment he gets in the car. You know what I mean?
Right. You see me in the car, like, whew, that was fun. Wipes the coke from his nose. All right.
Yeah, right.
I'll tell you what was a scary story, though. He takes the pizza out of the box, and all of the toppings have fallen off because he was holding it upside down under his arm. I know. Dude, you can't hold a pizza like that.
What are you doing? It was great, though. Oh, man. So, I mean, this is why, he fucked off for the rest of his shift. He didn't care. Also, I mean, the fact of the matter is, so the best part about this, and I think this is in true writer fashion, not, my girlfriend does not do this. I'm going to say this out loud because she is a somewhat known novelist, but I know people who write and do this. And of course, Fanny's like, let's do some coke. And then they're off doing some coke. I mean, I work in Hollywood. I know how it works.
Sometimes you just got to do some coke.
Sometimes you just got to do some coke to get the juices flowing. And we don't condone. No, that's not kidding.
No, we totally condone drug use.
Do whatever the fuck you want to do. I don't care. After 3 movies ago, we just covered a movie called The Binge that was about doing all drugs.
Oh yeah. I want to see that.
It's very good. That's one of my movies. That's one of the movies we made. It's good. So, so they do some coke. They have some beer. Now Carlo's in on it, and they're acting out Fanny's book. Finally Fred is like, tell us your zombie book, like, give us the thing. And so, Carlo's totally into it because he's a huge fan of the book. So he jumps into it, and he's off, and they're both acting it off. And that scene as the film escalates, and you have Carlo there, you have Fanny there, you have Fred there. When it gets to the moment where they're, the devil has possessed the American Idol person, I fucking loved it. That was just fantastic.
Well, our composers are they're a duo, and they're called Elegant 2. They call themselves, but it's Chris Maxwell and Phil Hernandez, and they've been composing for Bob's Burgers for
great show.
I mean, since the beginning. So, I mean, inherently, what I wanted to do was make almost like a South Parkian like single for this movie that we'll release at some point. But a song that was like, truly felt like one of those, one of the tunes that like Parker and Stone would have written forever ago. And
totally.
Chris and Phil are like true. I mean, they're true musicians first and foremost, but they've got great sense of humor. So I was able to, bring that thing to life with them. It was just so incredible what they did. It remains to be one of the absolute most favorite parts of the movie for me. I love that song. And my friend Annie Kruger, who grew up in or who I knew when growing up in Woodstock, sings it and knocks it out of the park, and it's just so damn fun.
That's spectacular. Yeah, I think the lighting of that one, how I think what's really great, and I guess kudos to you and your DP Brandon, is the way like it keeps flipping and kind of like breaking the 180. You keep kind of going back and forth, and you seeing from this audience perspective, and then like she turns and talks to the bandmates, and then I just think that helped with like the manic like emotion of that, is like it's kind of the big turning point in the film, because it's right before Carlo leaves. Mm-hmm. It's right before the escalation of Fanny and Fred. You could see that, Fred doesn't want to do the coke, and, he was like, I've never done coke before. And, oh, my nose hurts. And, you see like, right. You see him being pushed to that moment, and you feel the escalation of his emotion as the night goes on. Because again, I mean, like, I as a person watching the movie, all the stories are great, but if you like really look at it, you can tell that Fred's stories are kind of superficial in a way. They're very just like, it's a monster, the monster does a scary thing, we do a thing. But Fanny's stories have this depth to them. They have this, there's emotion behind it. The story of the Russian grandpa, like that's a perfect one. It's like there's so much to that story. Mm-hmm. And then you flip over to the troll one, and it's like, it starts off with like, well, I'm a troll because I'm a troll. Look at me, I'm a troll. And she's like, no, it's more. It's
why?
more.
Why?
Yeah, why? Yeah. And she keeps pulling that out of him. And I think that was fantastic. And I think it really helps. It's odd because it's one of those moments that lends exposition and backstory like inadvertently. And I thought that was a great touch. I think.
We kind of touched on this too, where like Fred really, like, he has the ideas and he wants it to come easily. He thinks that if he just like sits down to do it, it'll just happen. Whereas Fanny knows that like it takes effort, it takes work, it takes, really like dedicating yourself to it. And like, you mentioned that's pretty much where they butt heads, is like, she knows what it takes, and like he's not willing to really like accept that, and so he kind of projects that frustration outward. That's exactly right. It's a very true thing. And dude, it took me years to get to the place I'm at now, and this script it's fine, but it's a patchwork. It technically is a patchwork piece. These stories were stories I'd had forever over the course of decade. In fact, maybe, closer to decades of ideas, if we're including the ghost dog story, which I made up when I was a kid to sound impressive. This is something I made to make fast. So I'm essentially patching these stories together to make an anthology film to get something made to, for the sake of, making my first film as quickly as I can. And writing is a process. It's, for me, I mean, I'm no William Goldman at all, and can always use, help and feedback, but it's such a testament to like the creative process and how frustrating it is and how fun it is. And it's like, you're only as good as the work, you put into it. Fred is every part of me as you can possibly imagine. The laziness and the desperation for accolades, and even too the intimidation and inability to self-soothe, not so personally in the shadow of a woman's greatness. I have more insulation than Fred does, especially when it comes to gender dynamics. I'm a feminist and a cheerleader for the women in my life and for all genders, but it's a very, very real thing, and ego is such a part of it. And that's also just made it so fun to play. It's such a great squirmy topic, and he's such a great squirmy guy. And he's not a bad guy. That's I think he's just he's sort of it's one of us. He's an average white dude. It was told when you grow up you're going to be a success,
right?
And you're going to take care of everyone in your circle, especially the women in your life. And it's like when those things didn't go his way, and when one of these strong-willed women he meets is at the level he wishes he could be at, and it's tangible and it's right there, and she's also pushing him a little bit, that can be dangerous. That can be, especially when you add drugs and alcohol to the mix. Not to get preachy about it, I love a good pilsner, but I haven't actually ridden the white lightning, but yeah, it's yeah, it's relatable again, in an interesting way.
Yeah, I mean, nothing hurts more than being told you can do something your whole life and then being like, but no, actually, you're not good at that. And be like, but fuck you, dude. Yes, I am. I've told myself I'm good at it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what's interesting, and not every, this is different for every guy, but there's a peculiar thing that happens with men when you're told your whole life either you can do something or things are sort of given to us because of our privilege. Where then when a woman is in that position, especially one who maybe perhaps you've known or of, is sort of in that position you can be at with your competitive bros, like, whoa, you're making that much more money, huh? That's cool. But when the gender switches, something switches with us. It's alien to us as men. We're taught to be in that position,
right?
So that's
indoctrined.
Absolutely, it's a fascinating thing, and it was so fun to play, and it's been so fun to talk about on our little press journey here.
Yeah,
and Fanny is such a fantastic example of that, like not only successful but brilliant and confident and hardworking, but also like understanding of her own flaws, and like she's snarky and sarcastic, but she, like Michael said, she's trying to push Freddie. Like she sees at least he's got the spark. Like, is there something there? Can she like help bring it out of him? And I feel like,
and for a moment it's exhilarating, right? Fred's like, they were on a roll here, but then perhaps the most frustrating of all, and all this insecurity stems from not being heard, is the third wheeling when you're watching that person, especially in the company of another man who has the insulation, and thus the respect from that great woman, from that genius woman, or person of another gender, exclusive of you. And what that does to be the third wheel when you're not heard in the room, when you were being praised, when you're craving that accolade. It makes all the guy friends I've explained this to just kind of go like, yeah, I get it. I understand that. I know you're onto something.
I'm gonna go do 10 push-ups. I'll be back for no reason whatsoever.
How about them dolphins?
throw the old pigskin around or something. Yeah. So I mean, it's uncomfortable. It's meant to be uncomfortable. The character, and it gets through. And so, so we've progressed. We've told all our stories, and then the film progresses. But we're gonna leave that to you, because you should go and watch this movie.
Yes.
It is out right now on Shudder. It came out today on Shudder. So you guys should absolutely go ahead and watch this. So we'll close it like we normally do. Should you watch this movie? Well, Josh, should they watch this movie?
They certainly should. And if you like it, great. And if you don't, say anything and don't tell me. And don't.
It's funny.
No negative feedback, please.
Yeah.
No, because I truly can't deal with it.
Hey guys, good vibes only, please. Thank you.
Good vibes only.
It's all
Now, like I know we said that this isn't technically a horror movie, but horror adjacent, and like in that realm, I said this on social media as well. This is one of the best that I've ever seen, and I know that kind of that sets it way up on the pedestal for people, but I don't say that lightly. Like I just.
Caleb, thank you. Can I ask you why do you think that is? What is it? Because it's in its execution that it's sort of different. What is it that makes that for you? I'm curious for the for the fans, and
it's
for my selfish reasons.
The very unique way in which like it presented as stories, which I love. We talked about it. Like I love love storytelling in general. I love scary stories, and I love this whole, the idea of the competition, and like you said, the campfire stories that never leave the campfire. Like how unique it is for it to be like so confined in this, and like be so reliant on imagination, both like yours and the characters. The acting was just absolutely brilliant. The characters were like flawlessly written, in my opinion, and I just there was nothing about it that I didn't enjoy. And like the stuff that we're not going to spoil at the end that you have to see for yourself will make all of the setup worth it. And
Yo, yeah, 100%.
Did you see it coming?
No.
Okay, if you did, I'm just curious if you
No. So also from watching the trailer, I definitely thought this film was going to go more into the horror realm, because it was like, oh, they get into this cabin, they tell stories, and then maybe things start to go off. And I'm like, oh, the stories are going to, it's going to be like manifestation horror, and I expected you tell the werewolf story and then an actual fucking werewolf comes out and like, you guys have to deal with that. And then you tell another, like Goosebump style or whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, whatever, we'll watch this. This is great. And then as the film progressed, I was like, this is so fucking clever. This is like a thriller, because the thriller part of it is not the stories. It's the underlying tones of why the stories are being told and how the stories escalate, and watching the characters, watching Fanny realize the Fred's escalation, watching Fred realize just how great Fanny is, and seeing that happen. It's all the undertone. It's not the story.
Tension.
It's the tension that builds.
The tension that
builds.
It builds through the whole movie. That is just like you're tightening a string and tightening and
you can hear it,
and it's gonna pop at some point. Just when is it gonna happen? Yeah, and
that's cool. I'm so glad you think that.
Our social media manager Andrea, she like sent us a screenshot from
the watch.
Last, 15 minutes of her watch showing her heart rate as though she was doing cardio. So I kept looking at mine.
Mine didn't go off. I'm probably.
Well, to her credit, I don't know if that's the right way of framing it, but she's a woman who's probably been in, without giving anything away, but she's probably been in a similar situation, and that's why.
Fair.
Yeah.
I have an incredible privileged position to have Alex Bach, who's my producer, but for her perspective as a woman, to have gone to our different vendors and investors and to say, like, this is relatable for me for a specific reason that we won't spoil for you, but to have that champion was so crucial.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
like my wife Ellen, like she doesn't do scary movies. She won't watch horror movies with me, but like she did sit and watch this. I think at least in part because Michael had watched it before us and said that she would enjoy it. And it was probably like every 10 minutes or so, she'd just be like, I love her. She's so great. She's amazing.
Yeah, but same thing. My girlfriend was like, "Look her up. What else is she in? I need to see everything she's in."
I honestly, I hope we can get her like an Independent Spirit Award nom or something.
Seriously.
Oh, so fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She's just wonderful.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like we see you coming from like your background of improv and like College Humor and stuff like that, but like. Seemingly from just for the the little bit of research we did and knowing her career, like that really doesn't seem to be her background, but she pulled it off so well. Like she really comes off as one of those people who was like, well, I've been doing improv my whole life. Like, what the fuck are you talking? Like she's just great between the voices and the everything when she does like the little kid voice, and it was just the Russian grandpa voice, the Slavic grandpa. I loved it.
She was down to play, man. I keep repeating her joke, which I love, but she had written been interviewed by, I think The Cut was an article that had come out. Fantastic profile on Aya when she was in the home stretch of finishing her time on You're the Worst, and she said, I'm looking I'm looking for a challenge. I'm looking to be challenged, and I brought her this script. And, as she was making this movie, she was like, when I said challenge, I meant more like like a period piece, not like Crypt Keeper and voices. Like, she's like, I'm not like you. I don't do impressions, but she does a great, and kid, and I mean the fact that I got Aya Cash to say Howard the Duck. We have a Howard the Duck reference, which is what I watched as a double feature when my parents went to Tizzo's restaurant in upstate New York, and I was left home alone with 2 VHSs of my choice, and for some reason it was Halloween 5, Return of Michael Myers, and Howard the Duck.
Amazing.
Howard first. To get her to bring that artisan part of my brain to life was so fun.
We actually just talked about Howard the Duck an episode ago, because we did the last episode we did Stay Tuned, and Jeffrey Jones, who is the scientist in Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
We just talked about that because we did Stay Tuned. Yeah.
God, what a shame. Oh, Mom and Dad Saved the World.
We covered that movie too. I know. Yep. He fucking
Deadwood, and then child porn.
And then child porn.
Yeah.
It's the jump. Fuck Jeffrey Jones.
Yeah. I know. God, he was so one. Beetlejuice. God damn it.
I know, right? Trust me, we spent the entire episode being like, "Fuck you, Jeffrey."
Yeah, I know.
Just you dick. But yeah, so Josh, thanks a lot for joining us and chatting your movie and give us the insight. We super appreciate it. We're glad that we were able to get a copy of this and watch this movie. Very excited. I'm probably gonna watch it again because it was just really, there's so much to it that I think is really great. And I always love when we find one of these movies that turn out to be good, because we did a movie called Cannibal Cop, in which the cop never actually eats anyone, and we're like, then why the fuck did you call it Cannibal Cop? I don't understand. Why you spent 2 hours saying there's a cannibal cop and then he fucking never ate anybody?
It's
okay.
It's all right. Thinking I would see,
Right.
That's bizarre.
It was the weirdest. It was just fucking garbage.
Frankenhooker didn't stay at home. Frankenhooker got, she turned tricks.
She did what she needed to do.
Yeah.
Fucking unbelievable.
It wasn't an alive woman that didn't turn tricks. She's
a Frank. So Josh, if people want to, outside of going to watching your movie on Shudder, if they wanted to follow you anywhere, is there anywhere you want them to go to? A website, a social media?
My gosh, a Twitter, a TikTok. I would start with @JoshRubin. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram there. RUBEN, like Ruben Blades. And from there,
Nice.
You want to keep exploring. There's probably more stuff to find, but I think Twitter and Instagram is a decent place to start.
Perfect. Love it. So again, thanks a lot, Josh, for joining us. And on the special bonus episode of the Never Heard of It podcast, it's been a while, but we finally got a bonus one in.
We were just saying how we hadn't done one in a while.
And then this cropped up and here we are.
Glad
Again,
it did.
yeah, me too. So that's all. So thanks a lot for joining us, guys. We'll see you on our next episode this Sunday. We're covering The Voices, which stars Ryan Reynolds and Anna Kendrick. So join us for that episode this Sunday. Thanks a lot for everyone, and goodbye.